Welcome to our show, Discover the Difference. I'm your host, Jamie Reed, along my trusty sidekick, Gabriel Earl. Today we have Phil Dana on the show. Phil is born into a legacy family that is so revered, Dana Point was named after them. And Phil takes us on a journey back to when he was living in Idaho, enlisting in the Navy, and eventually going to the Naval Academy as a baseline for how he moved into his professional career. As a human resources leader that's worked with companies like Amazon and Intuit, Phil brings a very unique perspective of first learning what the organizational needs and aspirations are, and then reverse engineering into it what the talent pool needs to look like. And it's a combination of recruiting and professional development that he sees as a vision for how HR organizations will run in the future. Please enjoy our episode with Phil Dana. All right, sitting here with Phil Dana. Got to know Phil a little bit at lunch right before this. You have such a story. I mean, Irish background, which we're going to get into. It's an amazing story, but grew up a little bit in the Asian Pacific. You come up through a military family, go on to be an executive HR person for a number of who's companies.
It's crazy.
I mean, it's a really unique story. I mean, you have to be like one in a million or one in a lifetime, if nothing else. I mean, how does this all come together to tell this Irish, Asian Pacific story of your life?
I'm an American. You know, everyone's got their own story, right?
Yeah, heck yeah.
Especially a guy that grew up off the grid.
Yeah, a little bit off the grid. I was born in Oak Harbor, Whidbey Island, outside of Seattle, to a military family. And then whisked off to Philippines and Japan and a little bit Korea. And then when my dad retired after 30 years in the military, we went off the grid, log cabin, Canadian border in North Idaho, 5 miles from the nearest neighbor. And the nearest neighbor's name was Dick Hilbert, 82-year-old mountain man that smoked weed and made huckleberry wine and taught me how to trap and, you know, where the good apples were.
Straight out of a movie.
Oh, my gosh, it's stupid.
Well, so I had asked you before, I said, you know, are you a lineage to the military? And you walked us through that story. So you take us back through it again because it's a great story.
Yeah, so Richard Henry Dana, you know, his grandfather was Francis Dana, who signed the Articles of Confederation, first Russian ambassador. And then Richard Henry Dana was a sailor, came over here to California, did some trading, did some good stuff. He wrote the book 2 years before the mast, which was the first publication supporting minorities and slaves and sailor rights. Because back then they would just beat the snot out of the slaves and the sailors. You're equally worthless,
right?
When you're sailing around the Horn. So, yeah, pretty interesting coming from that lineage. And my grandfather was Philip Henry Dana, named after him, his grandpa. And he served in Iwo Jima as a Marine, and then my dad served 30 years in the Navy. And then somehow I stumbled into the Navy, and who knows, maybe the lineage will continue.
Is that any relation to Dana Point?
Yeah, it's Dana Point. Yeah,
Wow.
Richard Henry Dana, a little museum at Camp Pendleton in the back gate.
Wow.
That's just crazy. So you spend some good amount of time growing up in the Philippines then?
Yeah, a little bit from when I was 2 years old till about 8 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't seem to have picked up any of the accent.
No, it was my first language though, so I didn't speak.
Oh, really?
I didn't speak English well.
What'd you speak? Tagalog?
Until I was about 10 or 11. Yeah, Tagalog and then Japanese.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so
that's crazy.
It's
So
in
Can
there.
you still speak Tagalog?
It's in there. A couple years ago, I got really bad fever, and my wife said I went fluent for about an hour. It's weird.
So what's that transition like to go from, you know, seeing the world to being off the grid?
Well, as a child, it's definitely formative years, a formative moment where, you know, your Irish DNA and Asian culture, and now you're in the wilderness. You're getting to know Dick Hilbert better than you want to.
So you're hanging out with an 82-year-old guy who smokes weed in the northernmost parts of Idaho. How does your military career begin out of that?
Well, I was at my friend's house watching the news because he had TV and I didn't. And there was General Schwarzkopf kind of almost pleading to the American people that, hey, this is not some 2-week thing that we've gotten ourselves into here. And my buddy was raised pretty similar to me, actually, which is kind of wild. But he looked at me and said, hey, we should go enlist. And we were supposed to go to college. That was a big deal for that high school, that area, to go to college. We both got scholarships, and I looked back at them. We weren't drunk or anything, which is kind of a boring story. And we said, all right, let's drive to Coeur d'Alene and sign up.
So what was that? What was that switch? You got your life ahead of you. You got a scholarship to college, and somebody on TV just says to you, hey, we need you. And you just get in the car and drive through the snow.
Service, you see somebody that needs help along the road. Are you the type of person that is going to stop or not? I was raised to stop.
So tell us about that experience when you just showed up at the recruiting spot.
Petty Officer Rob Weathers, who now lives in Spokane, Washington. He knew who I was. Small area, not a lot of high school kids that can qualify to go into the military in that area. And, he was excited to see me. He tried to convince me to be a Navy nuke. I said, yeah, no, I grew up in the woods. You're not going to shove me in that thing underwater. No way. I guess he got more points for certain jobs. And I started, he started to get to know me a little bit about my unique upbringing. And he wanted me to go try to be a Navy SEAL. So that was a couple years of training. No, I just want to go get into that, what I saw on TV, kind of do my 4 or 5 years and then go to school, or my whole family's going to kill me. And he said, oh, how about an air crew job? I said, well, what air crew? That sounds cool. It's one of my tattoos now. And said, back a helicopter, it's about, 6 months worth of training, and you'll probably get over there pretty quick. I said, sign me up. So that's my first real job was to be a Navy air crewman.
You said one of your tattoos, is that like everything you do, you
yes.
make the mark?
Everything's got a meaning.
All right.
It's got a purposeful
Yep.
stamp.
We got the Irish here. We got the Dutch here, half and half.
What's the turtle?
The turtle? Oh, that's shellback.
Uh,
That's crossing the line.
Yeah.
You go from being a slimy pollywog to an honorable shellback. King Neptune allows it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you enlist, you spend your 4 or 5 years there, and then is it an intentional transition from that point, or
No.
what's next?
Yeah, mentorship. So mentorship. I had some great officers who took a liking to me. They would tell me, like, hey, you really should put in a package to get commissioned to become an officer. And my father had become, he was senior enlisted and then became a warrant officer, so a different kind of commissioning path. And those guys are the technical experts. And so I was enlisted for 4 years, put in my package on one of my deployments, kind of forgot about it. And then my senior chief came into the shop and said, oh my God, Dana's going to go to Annapolis. And if you had asked me where Annapolis was or really what it was, I had no idea. I just listened
Really?
I just listened to the mentors, and they helped me complete my package, and
Off you go.
off I went. I
Literally?
flew out of Australia and showed up at Newport, Rhode Island to go through a year of prep school.
Yeah.
And that's where I made a lot of great friends and a lot of other senior enlisted or junior enlisted guys that were trying to get into Annapolis at the time.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It seems like it would be impossible for an enlistee to not know what Annapolis was.
Well, if you had said boat school or a Naval Academy grad, we pretty much hated those officers. Yeah, they were the worst.
Yeah.
But prior enlisted guys, good to go.
So they still bad guys after graduating?
Yeah. I think it's gotten better.
Yeah.
What was that experience like? And when you're reflecting back on that, or is that something you're glad you did, or what did you get out of it?
Oh my gosh, everything good in my life now is because I did it. My wife, I met her through the Naval Academy. She worked there as a civilian. I've hired a ton of service academy grads, a ton of special forces, a ton of veterans. Where we live, my neighbors, my friends, what I've done in life for companies like Amazon and Sears and several others. There's a thread, and the thread is not hard to see.
So how many years after Annapolis did you serve?
6. Yeah, 6
okay.
years as an officer, 4 as enlisted.
Okay, and then what was it that coming out of the Navy, like you said, oh, hey, I want to be a HR person?
Yeah, right up the road at Embassy Suites, Orion International, big military job, fair company. Walked in there, and there was Rich Rodriguez, who was a reserve. He was a frogman. Looked at me and said, Dana? And I was like, sir? He was in civilian clothes, and he said, well, I'm reserves now. And he was at headquarters of a big home builder and said, we're here. You're going to be a guinea pig. We're sending you to Vegas, and you're going to build houses. I said, roger that. Okay, sounds good. Yes, sir. And I went and built houses, no HR, no recruiting. We went from 14 people to about 1,100 overnight. Built a lot of houses. And then they said, how did you do it? I said, well, it's leadership, it's communication, some skills, hard work. He said, you need to teach everybody else how to do it. Come be HR. And he said it at a steakhouse, Emerald's. And I looked down, I said some foul language. And I said, I've been crushing it. I just built you a ton of houses. We're one of the top divisions. You're going to park me in a little office filing papers? That's what I thought HR was. Because in the military, it's pretty close. I didn't even know what HR was. But
Well, the civilian world too, right? There's a stigmatism to it.
Oh, yeah. And sometimes it's true.
Yeah. So how do you change that dynamic from the moment you were told that's what he wanted you to do to, taking it on?
He was, two things on that. One, he was able to kind of bridge the language. The HR, involves talent management, leadership development, going and finding the best, developing the best, and keeping the best. I said, all right, I come from some pretty high-performing communities that know a little bit about good talent. So I enjoy it. As a former enlisted, I thought I led fairly well. I was told I led fairly well. I could teach others how to lead, how to communicate. You do a lot of teaching as you grow your military career. I enjoyed it. I kind of listened again to the mentor. He said I would be good at it. So I took the leap of faith. And, what I've discovered is if you want a life of impacting other lives, helping people make key transitions, seeing what in others, what he saw in me, and kind of helping them walk across that bridge, it's pretty awesome. I think my funeral someday will be pretty wild.
A big party, you
Yeah.
mean?
Celebration of life.
Right.
Probably some bagpipes, some scotch, some cigars. Most people are aware.
So is that something that you visualize?
Yeah.
Your death.
Yeah, what is it, Pericles? Your name won't be on monuments. It's how you impact lives. So they're not going to put corporate logos on your tombstone, right? So it's the stories that my daughter will hear about me later in life that are more meaningful to me.
Yeah, absolutely. So how do you transition from the start there to Amazon back when Amazon was like 3,000 employees or something like that?
Yeah, early days. That was fun. Really, formative years of my corporate career for sure. Went into Syntex Homes. Once a veteran like me gets in, it's, hey, this is okay. The door is breached. Follow me.
Yeah.
And so we hired a ton of military into Syntex, and then went to Sears in Chicago, ton of military at the C-suite already. So they were very supportive of me bringing a lot of veterans. I think I hired about 11,000.
Wow.
We raised a ton of money for Wounded Warrior Project. We brought apparel lines. I worked with a great guy, Tom Aiello and Don Hamblin. Don Germano is now the head of Dick's Sporting Goods. Just a bunch of veterans. We saw an opportunity to support the community and hire veterans and do some good. And then one of the HR leaders at Amazon said, hey, you said you're a lifelong Seahawks fan. That's another tattoo, by the way.
You go the inside.
Yeah, got the inside. Go Hawks.
As we keep going, as there's more clothing going to come off? Or?
Yeah, no, you don't want that. I'm not that shape anymore. So the conversation started and said, hey, come to Seattle, and we're building something pretty awesome over here. And I thought, it's funny you mentioned that, because in every meeting at Sears at the time, you guys come up a lot. So you're clearly pissing some folks off, and I like that. So, all right, I'll go be part of the Pirates out of Seattle. That's when they were still working out of the old Ghostbuster building, the old VA hospital on top of the hill. And 3,000 employees, 6 distribution centers. So and 3 years later, it looked a lot different.
That's incredible.
Yeah, we definitely want to unpack this Amazon experience. But even before that is, how are you, because people think of HR as compliance and paperwork and just this, not just so kind of keeping it in line.
Yeah.
And you're not a keep in line kind of guy. So how do you, debunk that
Yeah, what was the memes that say this is what I think I do, what my mom thinks I do, what my friends think I do, what I really do.
Right.
It's funny. It's backwards in the military. Everybody thinks the military is, like some badass Navy SEAL running around the woods or Marine Raider. Sorry, Phil. But the reality is we know that there's hours of paperwork. Oh my gosh, so much paperwork and all the unsexiness that makes the military really operate. So HR is the opposite perception. Everybody thinks it's all paperwork, but the reality is my day is never the same. I solve 30, 40 problems a day. If I'm good at what I do, I'm solving business problems, not just people problems. And people is like a golf game. There is no such thing as a perfect golf game. Nobody's ever hit 18 holes in one. And that's my day as an HR leader is you never know. I'll probably hit bogey and I'll hit the sand. And on this one, maybe I'll put it next to the pen. You never know.
Well, it sounds like at both Syntax and Sears, recruiting was a huge part of what you did. And recruiting veterans was a big part of that. Is that the same story at Amazon? And is that intentional in what you did? And
yeah, absolutely. I think most veterans would say if there's loud noise over there, I'm going to go check it out. If there's a fight over there, I might want to go get into it a little bit, run towards the fight. And so in the business world where there's action, that's where I point my nose. So Life Technologies was heavy mergers and acquisitions. That's what brought me out of Amazon down here and took a little $900 million biotech and sold it for $14 billion inside of 2 years. That was pretty good.
Yeah.
Where I am now, we're transforming, adding a whole new business unit, growing, changing the culture. I don't think anywhere I've been has been a normal work day. Even Sears, we brought the 32 brands together to create Sears Holdings while I was there, so that was awesome.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we've already these really large companies that you've worked for. We talked about Amazon, you talked about Sears and Intuit, Life Technologies, Nuvasive, and Zovio, which is formerly Bridge.
You got it,
Bridgepoint. What is it that these companies are finding because obviously if you're working at these companies, you're making an impact. What are they feeling when you come on board?
Statement that's at the bottom of my little Microsoft Outlook signature: the measure of a ship is in its crew and not its guns. And so it's culture. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. And I love being the dumb guy in the room. I play it well. I'm from the sticks. I got my poli-sci degree. There's nothing impressive about that. But man, they all need a guy like me in the room, or a gal. Focusing on the people, focusing on the environment, how to create high-performance cultures. If you create a high-performance culture, the results will come. A lot of business leaders think it's the opposite. If we win, we'll create a high-performance culture. Very rarely works.
We'll talk about that a little bit more. I mean, how do you go about setting that up then? To the businesses who are focused on the outcome, how do you go about creating the foundation of a high-performance culture?
Sure. Yeah, first thing is check the ego at the door and ask everybody for help. So if you're involving everybody, if you're involving, your lowest level soldiers before you go into this big complex battle, they might have some great ideas and call attention to things that are about to get you killed. In the business world, it's not life or death, but if you involve everybody, somebody might stick their hand up and say, yeah, we don't have a system for that. We can't do that. Here's why. By the way, that's illegal. If you involve everyone and you encourage them, nurture them, measure them. So there's definitely some science involved in using engagement surveys and engagement platforms and, assessment tools and bringing the best in, assimilating them quickly, developing them, keeping your best. If you just keep doing that, your company's going to win no matter what the name is or whatever the industry is. That's the other thing is I've gone to 8 different industries, 11 different companies now, and it's all the same. It's just people.
Interview. Yeah. This could turn into recruiting.
Do it. Well,
let's go.
Engagement is something that, this is a term that people use a lot, right? How do you engage people? And, when you see these surveys out in companies, it's, I would say a lot of companies, that's one of their biggest issues is engagement. And making making everyone feel, a part of the mission. How do you do that? Like, how do you engage?
Yeah, let me brag on my current team at Dendreon Pharmaceuticals, right? We're first is aligning towards a mission and a vision. At my company, everybody hates cancer. That's pretty easy. Not a lot of people love cancer.
Easy to get behind.
But we remind them of that with pictures of the patient, and bring real patients in to feel and hear their stories, and all the data and the daily reports of how many patients we serve today that goes out across. So true north, have a compass, point everybody in the same direction. That's step one. Over communicate when you're going through a lot of stuff. 3, involve them in everything. So culture committees, engagement, rewards and recognition, and professional development. That's our 3 culture committees, and we hand selected everybody on those, the best and the brightest. Employee resource groups. Luckily, oh my gosh, by the fate of God, we started an African American ERG 3 months before Black Lives Matter, and oh boy, that was powerful because we have a huge Atlanta office. That was very well timed. Women at work, veterans will be next. Look forward to, got to hire a few more. So those are powerful. Putting the tools, everybody wants the right tools. If the boss or the board or your shareholders are saying we want 10x growth, but they won't give you a great finance system or a great HR system, then you're telling me to go in a fight with a knife instead of a modern weapon. Measuring, the surveys are critical. Checking in with folks, doing roundtables. I do coffee with the CEO where I don't let HR or other leaders in the room. I'll pick 15 people and throw them in a room with the CEO for an hour. There's some good stuff that comes out of those. And then, the last piece, which most folks will appreciate, is it can't be all talk. You can't just put your values on a website, and you can't say we're going to do this engagement survey and get better. You've got to listen, and then you have to do something with what you hear. That's the last piece that seems to be the most important of everything I just said.
That's the follow through, right?
That's the follow through. Yeah, we heard you, and here's what we're doing about it. Here's the priorities. This is how we'll do it. By the way, you're going to help do it with us, and then we do it. Imagine that.
Is there ever, with any of these companies you've gone to, is there ever a time where you have to go to the leadership and coach them on being vulnerable and hearing that feedback and sharing it with the people that are giving it and being exposed, saying, hey, this is the feedback we got. Not all of it's great, but here are takeaways of where we're going to improve, and then make a commitment off that vulnerable moment and go? Or what's the process look like?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Being transparent and authentic is huge, right? I mean, if you're failing at something, that's to just voice that in front of the company, open your kimono and be vulnerable. Yeah, it's hard, especially for new CEOs or, the folks that are getting the pressure from the shareholders or the board. But man, the ones that do it well are the great ones, right? Yeah. I've had an opportunity to work for just phenomenal leaders in the civilian world and the military world. And that seems to be pretty consistent amongst the best is vulnerability, authentic, transparent, and then saying, okay, guys, we're all in it together. Now let's gather our wits and come together and fix it.
You touched on diversity, and it's an important topic. And, all the studies that are out there just show a more diverse workforce performs better, is more profitable, does better as a company. But then is it hard as, when you think about it as like a white male to champion that? Yeah.
Not at an HR conference. I'm the minority. It's awesome. But yeah, certainly, you have to be the voice of the people. You want to look and feel and be able to communicate and interact with the folks that are in the boat with you. And then the baby step in having a great diversity and inclusion program is look and feel like your consumer, your customer, whoever you're serving, so that you have empathy and knowledge and understanding of your ultimate customer. And then the last is you want to look and feel like your community, right? Where we reside, and the best way to do that is put on a Dendreon t-shirt and get out there and do some good and look around and realize, who you're really serving.
It's interesting because we were interviewed by an industry association, and they give us a lot of softball questions, but the last question came from the audience. They said, hey, we looked at your website and you guys look very diverse. They're like, how did you do it? And we were like, shit, we did not intentionally create diversity. We were just out looking for the best people in our community, and this is who we are. For companies like us, you know, they're 50 to 100 people and that are growing, is the future going to be that we have to more intentionally plan diversity? Or is it something more organic, like what you said, get involved in your community and it happens? Like, how do you see that working for the average middle-sized company?
Yeah, it varies industry to industry, right? When I started at Syntex Homes, I'd just come from a military environment, which was extremely diverse, with phenomenal female, African-American, leadership from all walks of life. You know, I think the military is probably the first to crack the nut and figure out how to do it well. And this still has opportunity, right? But now I'm in a home building industry in Las Vegas with a bunch of dudes and no females, no African Americans, no Asians, just a bunch of white guys building houses. And so what do? We started a National Association of Women in Construction chapter, the first one in Las Vegas. I went around different universities across the U.S. and encouraged females to come build houses. And so I think, you know, in my current industry in biopharma hybrid, we've had several senior leadership searches with some of the best search firms on the face of the planet with all the data in the world. And the data that they've showed me is there is so much opportunity. We had a vice president search where there was all of 3 African Americans in the entire universe that can do that job. It's like, wow. So how do we take the corporate world and go all the way back to 5th grade, the formative years, and say, hey, by the way, we cure cancer, or we fight cancer every day. Doesn't that sound cool? You know, it's even more cool in video games. And get them pointed in the right direction. There's no money in it for corporations, but somehow the school and education systems, parents, they've got to figure that out, because it's tough to be diverse, harder than some industries.
So what I hear there is we have to start selling preschoolers on how cool insurance is.
Yeah, there you go.
I like that.
Right?
That should be easy.
Lemonade stand? Let's start an insurance company.
Right.
Come on.
Right.
Yeah, because our industry is known for not being diverse.
Yeah, right.
And I think it does go back to,
Well, it's polarized in certain positions.
Yeah, right.
This position's all this type of person, and this one's this type of person. There's not a lot of cross-pollination of it.
Yeah.
so there's an intentional aspect that has to be out there.
Yep.
With our clients, and it's probably, I don't know if you have this problem too, but in today's talent pool, there's a massive labor shortage in almost every segment that we cater to, and businesses are struggling. I mean, we insure a company that is telling us they got to pay, $3 above minimum wage, a $500 signing bonus, $500 retention bonus to get somebody to come, work in their concessions so they can serve food. In this state that we're in, with just a lack of labor shortage, what do companies need to do to be able to get talent and grow?
Yeah, I'll check my ego on this one. It's my number one pain point. Recent board meetings and offsites, this is the big topic for me. We're adding a business unit that can go across multiple cancer indications, and we're going to manufacture products for other companies, and a lot of San Diego companies specifically. And we're up in Orange County, and then we're in Atlanta. And to get talent that we need to grow our company and to go fight more cancer, it is so hard to find. The schools, the systems aren't generating the talent that we need. We're trying our best to make our own, but we're also trying to run a company. So it's not like we can turn into a university. That's a whole nother thing. And just the geography, it's a huge challenge. So I don't really have an answer other than stay the course. If you want to be an employer of choice, focus on culture, get the good Glassdoor reviews, get your employees on LinkedIn, writing for the brand, loud and proud. Talk about what you do. Don't talk about me, Phil Dana, but talk about the patient who we just kept alive for 4 additional years, and he saw his daughters graduate school. And I think more companies need to do that than the cheeky websites. And
well, how do you get that movement to happen without it feeling self-serving? It's like we ask people to do Glassdoor reviews, and every time I ask, I feel a little bit bad. Like, hey, this is a self-serving mission, and the way we kind of look at it is, hey, if you want the best sitting next to you, we need you to cast your story to attract other people that are going to help make what we do great, and that you're going to like sitting next to you. But we still feel like it's self-serving, like how do you create that energy without it cannibalizing your culture?
Yeah, I think you want it to be raw and real, right? Because your company culture may not be what I want. When I started at Amazon, we interviewed a ton from IBM, Microsoft, and GE. Guess what? They didn't do well at Amazon because we were a bunch of animals, a bunch of data, customer-obsessed freaks of nature. And those guys would roll in and be like, all right, where's my budget? Where's my 100 people? And I'll get that to you in 2 months. Yeah, that's not Jeff Bezos. And so, there's different cultures, and your success and your culture that yields that success is probably not mine. I try to teach HR leaders that all the time when they go to recruit veterans. They put all veterans in the same group. If I brought a pilot, a Marine Raider, and a Navy nuke officer to a party without their uniforms on, you could probably tell the difference. Those are three very different cultures. Yeah.
That makes sense.
So what kind of advice would you give to, let's say, a younger company that's, growing rapidly, that really, want advice as far as avoiding pitfalls and really trying to figure out how to connect people to their mission?
Yeah, I spoke at a YPO function not long ago, and I said, don't wait until you're 10 years along and you're 500 employees as a California company before you hire your first head of HR.
What's the right time to do that?
And then don't put HR under legal or finance. HR should probably be one of your first 4 hires because you're building a team. You think an NFL team would not use scouts or a coach and just bring in nothing but players, and then 3 years into the league say, oh, now we got to hire these other guys and try to fix our team? It's fascinating that too many CEOs wait until it becomes a problem, and then they try to fix it. And they usually fix it with a consultant or tools versus just having a phenomenal people person next to them focusing on the people, because the measure of a ship is in its crew and not its guns.
I think that goes back to, Phil, something you were highlighting earlier as far as people putting HR in this kind of box or having this certain stigma as far as compliance and dealing with workplace issues, as opposed to understanding how it can be, a strategic enabler, right? It just enhances everything if you leverage correctly as, hey, we're building out, here's our long-term goals for the company, and understanding like, all right, well, here's what it's going to take to staff it. Let's make sure that people are getting the proper training. Let's bring in the right talent, and it's just across the company how much it enhances it at a strategic level.
Well, I know it's just hearing you speak's impacting me in the way I think about our organization and how it fits. So I think we're gonna be having conversations after this. Were you gonna say something, Phil? Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say the great companies, and I can feel it here at C3 today and hanging out with you guys. It starts with a group of people that are probably all of similar culture, high performance. I mean, the best companies start with that, the nucleus of leadership, and then they try to bring in folks that fit that. But the worst things that I've seen happen, especially in San Diego area, because it's a lot of small, hyper, high-tech, really cool companies in San Diego. They get 20, 30 employees, and then they get a bad hire at a director or VP level. Oh, you talk about horrific. Nothing is worse than putting a bad apple in a barrel. It is 10 times more potent than hiring a rock star. And every young CEO wants to hire nothing but rock stars, but doesn't do anything to prevent a bad apple from coming into a company.
So how do you do that?
Yeah. A lot of technology assessments, great branding on your website. What are your values? Differentiating values. Everybody says they want to be customer obsessed now since Amazon put it up. But man, at that time, it was the first company that really said it like that.
Well, maybe a better question is, because everybody wants to screen, right? But people still can get through the screen. What is a company like that you just described that makes the wrong hire at an important level position? How do you correct the state?
Secret sauce. Amazon calls it the bar raiser program. Intuit calls Assess for Awesome. The first thing is a group of senior leaders look around the room. How many bad hires have you made? Everybody puts their hands up. Okay, so who's good at hiring here? It's usually some senior manager. And you say, well, how many people have you hired? You look in the system, you start calculating the data. So if you're a senior leader and you don't have your batting average, you don't know who your best assessors and hirers are, then you can't answer that question for me. So the reality is, just because you're a senior, does that mean you're great at people picking? Like, where'd you get that skill? Where'd you go to school for that? Who certified you as a people picker? At Amazon and Intuit, they have a program that literally certifies you. They watch you, they observe you, they measure you, they pull reports, and they can say, here are our best people pickers, and then they throw a t-shirt on you, pay you extra, and like, okay, you 8, you're going to do the interviewing and hiring for the company.
Wow.
And so you'll get to sit in at the debrief, and you'll hear about who we're hiring for you.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's brilliant. You know?
Yeah.
Why would you have a CFO go be the chief legal officer?
Yeah.
Like, then why do companies do that with picking people?
But say Amazon gets that person who's not the right hire in the wrong spot. How are they correcting course?
Oh, Swift. Yeah, Swift. But it's understood, expectations set.
Or set up front.
Yeah.
So that's probably the key, right? Is being very
Performance culture.
transparent in your intent in the outcomes you want. And then if the match isn't there, you've already laid the foundation.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We should move into rapid fire.
Yeah.
Oh,
Never watch Seahawks football game again, but you have the freedom to eat whatever you choose. Or you have Seahawks football, but you have to eat the same breakfast, lunch, and dinner for the rest of your life.
Last one. Yeah. I'm good with eating the same food.
Okay.
As a veteran.
I should have excluded the scotch.
Wait, there's scotch involved? Oh,
I can add scotch in here.
that'll sway my vote.
All right, here you have to choose scotch and cigars at home or beer and apps at a brewery.
Oh, scotch cigar at home all day long. Fire pit, hot tub, you got it. Yeah.
I'm going to adapt my question from best feature attribute to favorite tattoo.
Oh, the favorite, the squid.
Oh, yeah.
Psychedelics.
What's that for?
Squid. Because I'm a Navy sailor.
Oh, yeah.
There's jarheads and there's squids.
That's a sweet one.
And then your Air Force, which is, I don't need.
All right, so you get to add a person to Mount Rushmore. Who is it?
Ooh. God.
What's the one thing you have always wanted to do that you haven't crossed off your bucket list yet?
Run for office.
Which office?
Congress or Senate.
All right. So we're going to be voting for you soon, huh?
Phil
many.
has the network.
Yeah.
He can do it.
I think so. I have no doubts.
All right, so if your friend or friends described you in 1 or 2 words, what would they be?
Big. My wife, she says, I said, what'd you see in me? You're big and you had an attitude. I never enter a room and without you knowing.
What's the second half of 2021 going to be for Phil?
I'm starting to reach an age and a point where I'm enjoying the small things, the moments by the fire pit, the when I can cook a full meal with my wife and not look at my phone, which is still hard. But I don't know. I'm kind of reaching a weird place. Maybe a second midlife crisis where, like, why do I work so hard?
It's like right before you're running for office.
Who knows? Who knows?
So this kind of transition to this, this reflection, and you're reflecting back on your journey. What would you say to your younger self?
Slow down and spend more time making closer friends. I move so fast. Even in my early corporate career, I ran past a lot of really good people. I should have latched on a little harder, a little longer.
All right.
And don't marry wife number 1 or wife number 2.
A little kicker there.
Yeah.
A little late for me.
Yeah. So the podcast is called, where were you earlier in Phil's life?
I
Could have used some advice.
I came in, yeah.
He came in at the perfect time, though, because
Right.
I am one of his success stories
Yeah, he was
in,
one of
in
my
helping
fellows.
guys transition. So thank you, Phil, for everything
Yeah,
you've done
man.
for me personally. Sorry, Jamie. Back to you.
No. Yeah, we're glad you helped them so much. He's
Still
helping
more
us
work
now.
to be done, I promise.
Yeah, no, we don't doubt that either.
The Cajun.
So it's called Discover the Difference. What's the difference in Phil Dana that makes you such a great networker and team builder?
I think two things. The service piece, I really grew up. My mom was a devout Baptist. My dad was the hardest working human being I have yet to meet. And so something about growing up in that environment where I'm not afraid of hard work, and I'll help you if you ask, no matter what. And then my brain works like one of those the old bicycle locks with the 4-number tumbler. Mm-hmm. So while I'm meeting people and getting to know them and listening to them, I'll usually walk away and be like, I got to connect them with this or do this, or I don't know, get on LinkedIn at night and do
That's
it.
how Scott Husing and you just like were
Yeah.
in lockstep there.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here, and we wanted to see if there's any parting words or how people can connect with you or anything that you want to end with.
No, I think the culture and what you guys do here at C3, letting folks like me speak into a microphone for a few minutes and hopefully doing some good in the community, right? I think that's pretty special. So thanks to you guys, and please let me know if I can continue to coach this guy.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
We would love that. I mean, and you have a great aura about you, and it was exciting to learn about your career, have lunch with you. I wish we had more time here because I feel like there's so much more to get to. But maybe we're gonna have to have a part 2 with Phil at a later date.
A couple more beers.
Yeah, we need a couple more beers for sure.
We'll make it
Thanks
a
so much.
series, once at a brewery, once at a Scotch tasting.
I like it.
It'll be fireside chats with Phil.
My backyard.
Phil's fireside chats there.
Yeah. Thanks so much for coming.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
All right.